Well, last night wasn't a good game. There's no question about it. And obviously he's got to share the brunt of the blame. He only had 15 points, finished on 6 of 17 shooting. Not to mention the fact that he had 5 turnovers, 2 in the last 35 seconds. Pivotal on his part. He obviously owns up to it. I don't overblow it because when you're a 2-time champion, regular season games such as this, it really doesn't mean that much to me. Obviously he could have played better. There was no question he could have played better. He had a bad game last night, plain and simple. And Kawhi Leonard defending him definitely had something to do with that. Let's give credit where credit is due. But to me, what was even more glaring than that was how thoroughly outplayed Kevin Love was by Boris Diaw. Boris Diaw had a big-time game, had 19 points, 7 assists at every pivotal juncture when the ball was in his hands. He did something productive with it, which is what couldn't be said about Kevin Love. Obviously, again, most of the onus would be on LeBron James on this particular night because his mistakes were more glaring than most. But it's just a regular season game. I'm not fazed by that because he's a champion and he's proven what he could do. Kevin Love is somebody that's never been in the playoffs. We're looking to see what he's going to do. We know that he can shoot the basketball, but that seems to be all he's looking to do. And I don't know, Skip Bayless, whether it's his fault or that of the coach, because I look at a guy like David Blatt right now who's got some things to prove, and maybe he will have an incredibly promising and productive future. But he's got, this is his first time coaching in the NBA. I'm talking about for the last 17 minutes or so, you've got some rookie, Joe Harris, on the court, wasn't subbed out of the game. On top of it all, he's sticking Manu Ginobili, the experienced, championship-tested Manu Ginobili. The minute they saw that this kid was on him, it was a foregone conclusion that Manu Ginobili was going to end up scoring a bucket, and that's what he did, getting a pass from Tim Duncan, where he ultimately scored with Joe Harris literally having his back turned. This is unbelievable, but it's the kind of thing that's happened, and it's the kind of thing that makes some of your coaching mistakes glaring as well. But in the end, I would put a lot of this on LeBron James. That's inescapable because he just didn't have a good game.
By the way, Joe Harris has been reported to be ticketed to be in the starting lineup. I like Joe Harris. I loved him at Virginia last year. But I do agree with you. Manu took him to school on the key play of the game. Now, big picture takeaway from last night, I actually felt sorry for you being at this game. It was not a pleasure to watch this game. I was obviously rooting for the Spurs. I thought they were lucky to win this game. I thought it was interesting that Popovich yelled at them at one point, and they showed it on TV. I don't know if you saw it, Stephen A.
Yeah, I did.
He said they're treating this like a playoff game, meaning the fans and the announcers and all the theatrics that are going on, all the extracurriculars. And he said, and you guys are letting them treat this like a playoff game. And I thought the Spurs weren't really into the game until maybe the final minute of the game. Far more defense from both teams than offense from both teams. But let's get to LeBron. I'm with you, not an end-of-the-world game for LeBron James. On the other hand, I certainly can't give him a pass for what happened over the final couple of minutes of the game. And I must admit to you, Mr. Smith, the end of that game rather painfully reminded me of the end of that fateful Game 6. Remember 2 years ago, Miami versus the Spurs at Miami? That game? Yes. Remember what happened down the stretch of that game when LeBron James managed to turn it over 3 shocking times in the final 3 minutes and 18 seconds? Twice he turned it over, LeBron did, in that Game 6 in the last 40 seconds. But what happened that night? He had Ray Allen to take him off the hook and bail him out. Maybe later this year, you never know, he might have Ray Allen again to help him out. But last night, it was all LeBron James. And obviously, his unforced error of a turnover ended up ending the basketball game a little bit prematurely for me. I do want to compliment Mr. James, King James, on immediately raising his hand and taking the blame. He took it, obviously, in the locker room with the media, but he immediately took blame on the basketball court by raising his hand. I really appreciated that because that was on LeBron, and he knew it. Now, what's my big picture takeaway of the last sequence? You know, it's interesting to me. LeBron, obviously, over time, has had trouble closing games. I think going forward, the Cavaliers will find LeBron will accept that Kyrie Irving must be the closer for this team. As a guy rooting for the Spurs last night, I was happy the ball wound up in LeBron's hand as the clock ticked down the last 8 seconds instead of Kyrie's hands. Because, Stephen A., you know this as well as I do, Kyrie Irving is a bad young man. He made really 4 shots last night. He made 3 out of 4 threes that were just unguardable because he was basically guarded a couple of times on the threes by Corey Joseph, and he just flat out willed the ball in the basket. So I was happy not to see Kyrie with the ball dribbling it up the floor, because if I got to bet on somebody to make a 3 to beat the Spurs, last-second shot, it would be Kyrie Irving, not LeBron James. I was disappointed we didn't get to see what LeBron would have done. He said in his post-game sound that we just saw or heard that he was thinking about taking the ball to the basket. His history is not to take the ball to the basket in that situation. His history would have been to pull up and take a 3. Would he have made the 3 to win the game? I would doubt that. But I wanted to see it, so I was disappointed that we didn't get to see it. But last quick point before I hand it back to you, I got to give credit to Manu Ginobili. He did blow that last free throw, which I thought he should have made, and yet he made a mad dash of a run at LeBron, and he disrupted him. He forced LeBron. I don't know if he had to dribble behind his back, but he did. And then when he reversed the ball, he somehow went to his left hand, which I didn't understand, and just lost the handle. But I think Manu had something to do with that, because you and I both know Manu has done that to a lot of guys over time. He's as disruptive a defender as you will find in the league, just an irritant, and he irritated LeBron into a turnover that basically ended the game.